But Keith's war was far from over. In 1945, he was posted to the Pacific to help the Americans who were closing in on mainland Japan.
So you were literally marauding your way across the whole of Japan at that point?
Nobody ever heard of it.
No.
We were the only pilots that flew British roundels over Japan.
Right.
Nobody's ever heard of it.
Here, Keith experienced a terrifying new form of attack.
They call it kamikaze, meaning the divine tempest. We call them suicide planes. Their destination? The deck or hull of any American ship onto which plane, bombs, burning gasoline, and red-sashed pilot can crash. 16-year-olds, still in aviation school. It was a maniacal, all-out effort to smash our sea power.
On the 4th of May 1945, Keith was stationed on the British aircraft carrier HMS Formidable off the coast of Japan.
So that's Formidable. There's a kamikaze, so that's loaded with high explosives. So the guy is going to take that into what he thinks is the most vulnerable point of the carrier, and that's the impact going on there. What on earth must that have felt
I was
like?
down in my cabin putting my flying gear on.
I believe it says that there was 7 killed and 42 wounded. There's a description from one guy from Victorious who's looking across the Formidable saying he couldn't understand how on earth anyone survived that.
A few days after the first attack, Keith's carrier was attacked again.
Later on, we learned to wave a great big red flag off the side of the island to take cover if any engines were running on the flight deck.
Right.
I had my flight at instant readiness. We were all strapped in our cockpits and we started the engine about every half hour to make sure that we got warm engines and they could fly us off at a moment's notice if necessary. When this red flag was waved, so I've switched off, untipped the straps, got out of the Corsair and down about 3 decks before it hit us the second time. And so did everybody else on the flight deck. And although it damaged quite a few of our aircraft,
Killed very few.
it killed far fewer people.
Yeah.
Keith was eventually shot down during an attack on a Japanese harbour. But even then, his luck didn't run out.
I ditched somewhere between that island and the
Got
mainland
it.
there. But we were told that if you don't think you can get back to the fleet, get as far away from the coast as you can. So having ditched in here,
That's not very
I was
far, is
paddling
it?
as hard as I could get out in my little dinghy.
Yeah.
And you can imagine when this submarine came in on the surface, steaming straight into the harbour, it didn't occur to me it was an American. I
So
thought it must be a Jap
the
submarine.
Americans actually came in that close.
They came in that
to come
close.
And get you.
Yeah,
I mean, how good's that?
yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Keith was still on board that submarine when the second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, and the war ended.
So, dare I ask, Keith, that's you, how many of you guys survived that from that photo?
He was killed. He was killed. He was killed. I think it was him, killed by the kamikaze. He was on deck. He was killed on the Tirpitz strike.
Good grief.
Killed. I think that's the lot.
Bloody hell, Keith. That's about 2/3.
That's 16 out of 18
Yeah.
were either dead or out of action.
It's horrendous, isn't it?
It staggers me. You had to keep all this suppressed somehow. If you dwelt on it, you got the twitch.
Yeah.
Over 5,000 British servicemen were killed in Asia and the Pacific. Keith was one of the lucky ones.
When the war was all over, I'd been shot down, I'd lived through it, didn't get captured. It suddenly occurred to me, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
There's
Wow.
no doubt. I know I'm going to get home. And it suddenly became obvious how much I'd had to suppress all those sort of thoughts previously. That the need to, and it was nothing to worry about anymore. It was an odd feeling. Thanks very much for coming.
It's been a
got the
pleasure.
information
And
you wanted.
I have to say, Keith, it's been an absolute privilege.
The thing that still irritates me rather, especially when I think of the number of our fellows who did not come back, the thing that hurts most is that we are not known. I don't think we were all that wonderful. We weren't like the Battle of Britain chaps or the D-Day chaps who had to land on the beaches. But nobody ever even heard of us, and we were the only British aircraft flying over mainland Japan, and nobody's ever heard of us.